We all know the story of Jamaica's triumphant rise from an economic perspective. Our debt has fallen from a peak of 150% of GDP now down below 70%. Complementing that, our capital markets have done very well. Our stock market was the best performing stock market in the world.
It's one of the things I believe that we need to include more in the curriculum in schools.
Our role is to be an intermediary. We stand in between people who have a need and people who have a need. And in our case, on the capital market side, we stand in between people who have money, who want to invest, who need a return on that money, and people who need money to grow their businesses or their projects.
What are the biggest mistakes you see founders make?
Most significant one is a lack of. That's what I'd say. It's not trying to get away from it or get rid of it. It's really just managing the downside associated with it.
And a key part of that, I would say, is
you need to continuously be focused on preparing the people who are directly below you for an eventuality that you will be there.
there are not enough opportunities for this.
Yeah.
Why do you think that was so? This has been another edition of the Leaders Live podcast. Until next time, see you soon. Get ready to grow your leadership to the next level with real leadership lessons, inspiring stories, and business insights from the world's best thought leaders. This is Leaders Live podcast with your fearless host, Erica McKenzie. Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Leaders Live podcast. Today, I have with us our very special guest, the CEO of Barita Investments, Mr. Ramon Small-Ferguson.
Hi, Eric.
How are you?
I'm pretty good.
Oh, my
pretty good.
goodness.
Thanks for having me.
I am so grateful to be having this conversation with you. It is one that I'm going to say to you that is timely. That's the
Yeah.
word I'm going to use.
Yeah.
And it is timely because it's a burning conversation that many people want to know about raising capital and investments. And what I would say is we're not educated enough
Yeah.
on this topic.
No, that's true.
It's one of the things I believe that we need to include more in the curriculum in schools. And,
I agree.
And I know that you're going to be one of those persons who will lead the charge with this. I'm literally just saying this and just putting this out there.
No,
and I know you've been doing some of that.
Absolutely.
So I want to just start off though, Rahman, as we talk about education. Tell us a little bit about what is it that got you into this game to get you to where you are today. You're now in leading the top investment company in the Caribbean, I would say.
Oh, thank you.
How did you get here? Like what, this didn't happen by accident.
No.
Tell us a little about your journey to get here.
It's a good question, right? And the answer always surprises persons. So I'd say it's a combination of a few deliberate steps and providence, right? In school, I had never set out, I'd say from inception to be in business or anything adjacent to business. I had started out at a point in time wanting to be a zoologist. I was fascinated by animals, and I watched a lot of National Geographic. I wanted to go and jump on crocodiles, right? And as my youthful exuberance faded, I became more practical. I started to look at things in the sciences, and when I was in fourth form, I did accounts at the CXC level, and I found that my affinity for numbers grew when there were dollar signs beside those numbers, right? So at that point, I said, okay, maybe I need to, look into this accounting thing further. Right? I want to be an accountant. So I went to university. I went to the University of Technology, Jamaica, to do a Bachelor of Business Administration. And my first semester, I did an accounting course. And after that accounting course, I was like, all right, so what else to have in the world of business, right? It was a challenge for me. I don't even know why. I don't know if it was the rules or what, right? So as I progressed, when I got to the point of needing to choose a major, finance was, I suppose, adjacent enough to accounting, but had a bit more flexibility and flavor, so I was drawn to it. And as I went through those 2 years of specializing, a passion grew, right? I started to really, develop my appreciation for the possibilities created by the world of finance. And I was lucky enough coming out of school after many months of trying and many no's to get a job that was kind of squarely in the space. Right? I didn't go through any form of transition. I started out as an investment analyst. As time has gone by, as I said, through deliberate action on my part, yes, but providence, things that seemed like a catastrophe. I remember the first team that I worked on. After 6 months or so, it was apparent that 6 of the 8 people on the team were going to leave. Right? This is my first team. And I saw that as just, an apocalypse. Right?
Yes, because I mean, that sounds like an exodus.
Yeah.
6 of 8.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, these are the people who hired me and who I've been working with. New people are going to come in. It's going to be crazy, right? But it turned out to be an opportunity. I ended up getting a promotion out of it, ultimately, from the new people who came in. And I think that essentially put me on a path, which many years later has led me here into this seat. So again, some deliberate action on my part, but providence, quite frankly, which has put me kind of on this fast track to executive leadership in the space.
Well, that's quite a story there, and one that we probably need to flip and look now. So, one of the things that you would have noticed back then is that
Yeah.
there are not enough opportunities
No,
for,
absolutely.
for this.
Yeah.
Why do you think that was so?
I think Jamaica was in a different place. The financial market was in a different place as well. We had, at that point in time when I just came into the sector, gone through our first debt exchange in an attempt to alleviate the burden that the debt was having on the economy. And as such, financial institutions bore the brunt of that burden. Right? There were losses coming out of that. There were frankly, there was a lot of attrition from the sector, forced attrition resulting from that. So people weren't really looking to build out their teams. Since then, we had another debt exchange, but we all know the story of Jamaica's triumphant rise from an economic perspective. Our debt has fallen from a peak of 150% of GDP, now down below 70%. Right? Complementing that, our capital markets have done very well. Our stock market was the best performing stock market in the world for 2 of the last 10 years. So, I mean, these things have been, I suppose, the rising tide that has lifted all the boats in the sector. And it's now commonplace for entities to have larger complements than they did then, right? And larger complements of entry-level people as well, larger complements of analysts. Before, a firm would have probably had one analyst. Now you actually have teams of analysts. So there is, I think, a myriad of additional opportunities for young people coming into the space now. Thankfully, I'm happy for that. But back then, yeah, we were fighting for scarce resources for sure.
Well, that's so fantastic. And here's what I want to bring to the fore, just in case, for persons who are watching or listening.
Yeah.
Barita now, actually, under your leadership, I guess maybe pivoting from that experience that you've had,
Yeah.
is doing so much in the space in terms of even brokering that,
Yeah.
and making sure that you're doing that from the university stage into the company. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I can definitely talk about that. So, I mean, we actually have an analyst program, which is novel in the space. It's not so novel in the investment banking space in the States, but it is the brainchild of our group's founder and CEO, Paul Simpson. So Paul, wanted to kind of continue to bring that best-in-class way of operating into the space here in Jamaica. And he would have given us a charge to say, listen, I want an analyst program. And so the business would have collaborated with our human resource function and put together the first iteration of that program, which I think was launched now maybe 2 or 3 years ago. It was a fantastic success. We had 5 excellent participants in the first cohort. A number of them spent some time with us and moved on to other areas of the sector. But we still have one who is the poster child of our program, Justin Burke. I'm proud to say that I was his assigned mentor.
Oh, wow.
In the first iteration of the program. And Justin is just phenomenal and demonstrates, I think, what we're trying to achieve with this program, right? He would have come in fresh, with a bit of experience, but not much to speak of. And in the ensuing 3 or 4 years since joining us, he completed his Chartered Financial Analyst designation, which is the premier designation in this space.
Right.
It's very coveted.
Wow.
And he would have cycled through, I think now 4 roles. He's an assistant manager in our investment banking business at, I think, 24, 25.
Right.
So that's the kind of thing that we want to do via this program, really cultivate that talent.
Yes.
It's a key part of what we do at Barita. And as I said, our HR function is very big on that kind of thing. So we're building leaders from day one. And,
I totally agree with that. I'm so grateful to be a part of that too,
Absolutely.
here at the Maxwell Leadership Team, like being able to support you and your team.
Absolutely. It's
Believe
been
me.
fantastic.
Yes, and I absolutely love the culture for Barita. I can say so myself, and under
thank
your
you.
leadership, believe me, I'm telling
Thank
you.
Yeah,
it's-
we're working on it. It's a
Yes.
collaborative effort. You know
Yes.
how it goes.
Yes.
So, I mean, the business does their part, HR has their role,
Yes.
and we have certainly been doing a much more cohesive dance as we try to build the culture. It's a continuous process, and it's
Thank
a
you.
live organism.
Yes. And we're happy to be a part of that. So, Rahman, let's just jump back in. And I really want to ask you this question because we are big on supporting leaders and entrepreneurs. And you are a key piece of that. Barita is a key piece
Absolutely.
of that ecosystem. So, most entrepreneurs think, when they think about raising money, it's more than just having a big idea.
Yeah.
What are investors really looking for, though? Can you
it's-
just talk a little bit on that?
It's an excellent question, right? Effectively, the question is what makes you investment ready?
Yes.
Right? So our role, just to kind of take a step back, in the financial services sector in general, is to be an intermediary. You know,
Right.
it's a big word, but what it really means is that we stand in between people who have a need and people who have a need. And in our case, on the capital market side, we stand in between people who have money, who want to invest, who need a return on that money,
Yes.
and people who need money to grow their businesses or their projects, right? So that's our role, to really get in the middle of that. Now, our role, though, is very specific as it complements other segments of the financial landscape. So I tell people, for example, that I do transactions, yes, that banks could do, but those aren't my favorite type of transactions. Banks have their roles, right? They lend fairly conservatively in a particular way. Our job is to help to enable the banks to be able to lend, right? So we take a bit more risk and we are more flexible and structured. Now, when you talk about entrepreneurs, and particularly those just starting out, they need a particular kind of capital, which may not necessarily be available immediately in the capital markets, right? Because as you have said, if you have a big idea, that's something that still can be funded, but the level of available capital for that kind of thing, and particularly in Jamaica, is low, right? And we call it venture capital, we call it angel kind of capital, where someone comes in and gives you some money and says, go ahead and start this big idea and this venture that you have, right? Now, you can appreciate that there isn't a very well structured network just yet in Jamaica to support that kind of thing, because let's face it, it's almost like a bet. You know, you're kind of taking a bet.
There's no certainty.
Exactly. Now, in the States and other more developed markets, that leg of the capital kind of framework is much more developed. There are many companies that have benefited from venture. Facebook, Amazon, a lot of companies that started out as wild ideas that got funding even before they made $1 of revenue, right? So I'll say to people who are entrepreneurs who have big ideas, don't be discouraged if you go to a bank and they tell you, listen, we can't help you, or you talk to somebody in the capital markets and say, listen, we cannot help you. It's not that the idea isn't good. It's just not yet, it hasn't yet germinated to the stage where you are investment ready or bank funding ready. So what do you do at that stage?
Yes, tell us.
You actually need to figure out how to flesh this idea out in a way where somebody other than you can digest it. When we were off camera, we were talking about my experience having to write something, not too long ago for somebody else to read, right? It's kind of like that. You have to figure out, now, how do I write this idea, which is so cogent in my head,
Right.
out in a way that somebody else can digest it. And the kind of pockets that will fund you, it's going to be things like friends and family, right? You're going to have to go into your own pocket, quite frankly.
Yep.
You're going to have to figure out if there are persons with resources that you don't have and have aligned incentives who you can partner with. There's no shame in partnership, right? It's better to own 50% of something than 100% of nothing.
I love that.
So those are the kind of forums where you're going to be getting funding if all you have is a very well thought out idea. Now, notice I said very well thought out. It means you need to cover your bases. So you need to translate this idea to dollars. So yes, you have an idea that you are going to serve this market in this particular way. But what segment of the market are you going to serve? How much of the market, and what does that mean in dollars and cents? Where are you going to get supply from? How much money do you actually need? Right? And once you work on that plan and lay it out, you can start to have conversations with people who are well placed to take that kind of risk. Right? Unfortunately, it's not the banks, it's not the investment banks either. We're all regulated, and we have a high standard that we need to meet in terms of where we invest and how we lend. Right? But again, it's gonna be friends and family. It's gonna be high net worth individuals. It's gonna be partners who you can bring in who are aligned. It might be somebody who is in the business space already and has some excess capital. They understand entrepreneurship. You go to them and say, listen, I have this idea and I want to bring you in for X%, right? You naturally need to protect yourself because there are predators out there, sharks, right? You pitch your business idea and all of a sudden you see a logo in a different color up on a building, right? But there are ways to control that kind of thing in terms of having that conversation. So that's what I'd say to somebody with a fresh idea, no proof of concept, who wants to figure out how they can turn it into a reality.
Yes, and we have some of those, especially we see like people coming up with new apps. We're living in an age where there's so much new ideas, coming up. Some of them are really brilliant ideas.
No, absolutely.
No, let's talk to, when are they ready? When are people ready for a Barita Investments? When are they ready?
So I can talk to you about that.
Yes.
So there are a few features that we look at, quite frankly, for investments, for it to make sense for both of us, right? Because again, I tell people that the key to business is mutual alignment.
Yes.
When you can present something in a way that shows how it works for you, but how it works for the person on the other side, that's when something gets done, right? You meet in the middle. That's what a market is. So for us, there are a few features that make sense. Scale is one of them.
Yes.
It needs to be of a particular size. Unfortunately, by virtue of the limited resources that we have, that we need to channel to doing business, it would make sense for us to look at something that's $10 million, for example, in funding, right? So it needs to hit the right kind of scale. Separately as well, you need to be beyond the proof of concept phase. Absolutely. So we like to see things like contracts in place. We know you have a set customer base. You've actually started to generate revenue. And we're coming in to help you to scale this thing, to step it up to the next level. So you need to have something already going. You need to come to me with, more a talent and say, listen, I've built this thing and I now need you to help me to take it to the next level, right? The nature of the investment as well is, as I alluded to before, it isn't necessarily something that needs to have gotten to the stage where, the banks would be all over it and it's easy for you to get funding. So we'll look at something that's a little bit more complicated, right? And figure out how we can bring in flexible funding. So it needs to be at a stage where you're not just looking for a regular monthly pay banking type facility that you pay out over 5 years. You may need some capital that requires you to get some breathing room, right, so that you can run and grow. Those are the kind of things that we like as well. So I'd say of a certain size, you've gotten to a certain stage where you're revenue generating and you actually have a business, right? This isn't a concept. And yes, I mean, we look at something that requires a little imagination, given the nature of where we sit in the financial landscape.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for giving us insight into some
No
of the ways in
problem.
which you're adding value to business. Again, this is education
Yes.
so that people can get to understand. So we're doing a double here. People get to understand, how Barita is helping.
Yeah.
And they also, in this very same conversation, getting education, financial education, which is so lacking. So I know you probably answered this, but what are the biggest mistakes you see founders make when making and managing their investment or investor relationships? So, like, for those who probably would have gotten to the point where they get the investment, what are some of the mistakes you're seeing in that investor relationship?
It's a good question. So the first, and I think most significant one,
Yes.
is a lack of transparency. Right? You have founders who are easy to find, all in your face when things start out and things are going well and prospects look high. And as soon as there's a problem, nothing. I mean, you hear about the problem on the road, right?
My goodness.
That is a terrible trait to have
Yes.
in dealing with investors. I think the other thing is overpromising. Right? You have to, be a salesperson, and you have to be optimistic. But overpromising never gets you anywhere
Yes.
good. Right? I think that's another trait as well. I think hubris and overconfidence is another issue that I've seen with some founders. Again, confidence is not
good.
bad, right?
There's a
But
delicate balance, would you say?
it is. So I think the fourth thing I'd say in looking at, traits that I'd recommend that entrepreneurs focus on is really trying to bring their ideas to a certain point before accepting people's money. Right? Try to bring it as close to the end or some version of the end as possible in your mind before taking on funding. When you get funded, there's a lot of pressure.
Absolutely.
Right? So it shouldn't be that you're going seeking funding and then figuring it out after. You do need to have a plan and a well-structured plan, right? And get advice if you need to. Don't be afraid to get advice. So those are four things that I'd recommend.
And when it comes to advice, of course, you're my go-to advice. Like, I'm gonna ask.
I
I'm gonna
appreciate
ask
that.
all the questions because, again, this was not something that was at the surface or
Yeah.
that we're very intentional about. And I'm so grateful that you are actually doing that
Yeah.
in the space right now, in the schools, just really helping to provide this kind of information and education. But you just touched on something when you said you got to know, you got to have a plan. What is it that keeps an investor confident, especially during times of crisis? We just had one. We went through a pandemic. God forbid we
Yeah.
have another one, and you're already deep in that. What would you say? How do you navigate through that period
So
of time?
I can speak from my perspective, right? It
course.
takes us back to the first point that I made in response to the last question. A transparent entrepreneur
Yes.
who calls you at the first sign of challenge, sits you down and says, listen, this is the real deal. Here's what we're doing.
Right.
We'd love your ideas as well. This is how we're trying to protect your investment during this time of crisis. And I'll update you as things progress. You certainly don't want to hear bad news.
Right.
But that certainly gives somebody like me a lot more confidence than someone who seems to be putting their head in the sand, hoping and waiting for the problem to go away. So I think there is that, Paul, who I mentioned earlier, who founded our group, always says that the bad news needs to take the elevator and the good news takes the stairs, right? So that kind of constant contact, I think, gives confidence, right?
Right.
For sure, as an investor, I'd say that's the main thing.
Got you. Thank you so much. So transparency again is absolutely
At the
critical.
top, at the top.
Right. All right. So again, private equity, venture capital. do you find those are growing in the region,
They are growing in the
in
region,
Caribbean region,
at different
a
paces, right?
different pace? Yes.
So venture is less visible, right? Venture at this point in time has a lot less structure.
Yes.
It's much more in kind of the friends and family stage,
Got you.
where persons who have made their money from doing other things have some money on the sidelines, and they'll put some money into an opportunity with the hope that as time progresses, it will grow to a stage where it's either bought out by another company or there is actually an opportunity to list, right?
Yes.
And the stage at which they invest is really what makes it venture. You know, if it's early enough, it's venture. If it's a little later in the cycle, then it's classified as private equity, right? Private equity has grown in leaps and bounds.
Right.
You actually have dedicated, structured strategies managed by professionals that are focused on private equity. And investment banks like ours have actually done several private equity type transactions. That has grown. I mean, when I just came into the sector, that was almost non-existent in the formal space. Now, as I said, you actually have private equity funds. So it's been growing, and it really involves again investments in private companies that have things more or less figured out,
Right.
that need no capital to grow. Typically,
Absolutely.
that's really how these things kind of are structured locally. At least.
Again, more on this scaling. So people who are
Yes.
looking to scale
Yeah.
and just need that runway to be able to do that.
Absolutely.
What kind of, and again, just to remind us, what you typically see, like a company that is ready to scale from a Caribbean perspective, what kind of EBITDA they're looking at? Like,
Yeah, so it's a wide range, right? And it really depends on appetite. I've seen private equity investments from investment banks as low as 25, 50 million to as much
US,
as Jamaican dollars, to
Jamaican
as much
dollars.
as 3, 4, 500 million, a billion Jamaican dollars going into a company. So
Wow.
it's really a wide range of EBITDA levels. Again, the company just needs to be private, right? So it varies. I'd say if you are looking for equity funding with a 50 to $100 million mark as a floor, and that translates to 30, 40% of your company, it means that your company would be worth anywhere between 150 and 300, 400 million, right? Which means that you would need to be earning EBITDA of maybe, I don't know, anywhere from 30 to 70 million Jamaican dollars in EBITDA for kind of formal structured
Right.
company to come in and propose to invest in you.
Good.
Right?
And-
So
and
just to
then-
reverse engineer that.
100%. And when we talk about EBITDA, we talk about earning before interest and taxes.
Correct.
And you want to just, for the people
Yeah,
who
sure, I
don't
can
just
break
see-
that down.
Yeah.
So
Just
that's
so that we're not
basically
losing anybody who's
no
probably
problem.
trying to learn more from us.
That's essentially, if
Yes.
I'm to break it down in its most basic form,
Yes.
your revenues minus your direct expenses. So what revenues you generate less what it costs you to generate those revenues. Before you start talking about any loans that you're paying for in terms of interest or any form of taxes that you're paying, your EBITDA just really looks at what the margin of the business is, right? Which is a good barometer, right? Because the other things tend to be, you can figure them out.
Okay. 3 things business need to consider so that they can be investor ready.
Good question. So one is governance,
Yes.
right? And governance
Talk
from the
about that.
perspective of, all right, so you have this business, it's your private business, but you have to start thinking now that at some point I'm going to let people in.
Yes.
So you need to start to distinguish between yourself and the business, and your practices need to embody that. So it
Yes.
can't be that the business is paying a cable bill and it's you really look a supermarket bill is being charged through the company. You need some separation, right? You also need to.
How important is that? Why is that so
It
important?
is quite important because if you think about it, if you are treating the business that way, when I come in with my money into your business, you're going to treat my money that way too. It's going to be a wallet. I mean, I'm going to invest, and next week I see you in a Benz, and I'm going to start wondering, is this the new version of a supermarket bill?
Right.
So there's that. The other thing that helps with independence is who's on your board, right? You need to start building out a bit of a board, even if it's 3 or 4 people at first. I mean, it helps when I realize that you are seasoned or used to consulting with people to make certain key decisions in your business. Yes, it's your business, but you're not running it that as though there is some democracy embedded and you have people there holding you accountable, right? That's very important, right? So governance, for sure. The second thing is structure and reporting, right? So, you come into me, you want my money, but your numbers are all over the place. You don't have a handle on your information, right? Yes, I have accounts, but my accounts are 1 year dated, and I've never, brought in anybody to look at them for me. Those things, they don't help, right? So the lack of structure, it really doesn't help. So that's another thing. So governance, structure, reporting. I think the third thing that I'd say that really helps to get people invest already is if they've made some inroads with respect to their team. It's not a one-man shop, right? There is at least somebody else there, and I'm not just investing solely in you, right? So this business is really now a business. Right? There is some continuity. God forbid something happens to you, my investment won't go up into flames, right? There is at least something else. So once you've gotten to a stage where the business is now truly a standalone, right? Sure, you're a key person in the business, you're a key man, it's your business, right? But it's something that can run without you, right? With another CEO. That's something that's much more investable than if that's not the case. Right? So those are 3 things I'd say.
Love, love, love those 3 things because, in essence, it helps to give that surety, that to make you ready for that. So it's not just about having a passion, and thinking that you have the best idea.
Absolutely.
But to be investor ready, for people to really invest their money, you've got to have governance, structure, having a team, and really just being ready to show that the business can function without you.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
I agree.
Love that. And I hope everybody who's listening, watching, is really just zooming in on this, because this is something that I find, especially as you begin to build a business, for people to consider. Here's what I find, Ramon, is I find that people wait. So sometimes I find that you're building a business and you're not putting in the structure. You're just moving, and sometimes that business balloons so fast without the structure in place. Now you're gonna have to go back down. I want you to zoom in a little bit more on structure and why is it so important for people to just zoom in on that, because it happens. Like
it's true. So the earlier you're able to put in some version of structure, the better. Because as you have said, the business will get out of control. It's wild, and you realize, I have no policies. I have no, this business depends on us doing things a particular way, but I've never taken the time to document that because I know how to do it. So it's worked. Right? So things like that are important. And even when you get to the stage of not only looking for investors, but when you're now transcending and going into the big leagues, so to speak, in whatever area you're in, your potential customers are going to ask you for some of these things. You say, okay, I hear you that you've done this, but how do you do it? Send me a breakdown. And then as you said, having to go back to try and build it from scratch. So as early as possible, when you can put some structure into place, it really does help, for sure.
I want to talk a little bit though, and I'm talking about especially people who are at the startup level. And not just at the startup, but I find this as something, again, as an issue with entrepreneurs, even the ones who have grown to a certain size. We have something called the founder's dilemma. And it's very hard for them to separate and to really allow the business to grow, even when they probably, at a point where they're putting structure in place. But they still want to cling to the idea of the business and wanting to take control of that. And so even when they have, maybe somebody stepping in place, it's hard for them to do that balance.
Yeah.
Is it something that can really go away? What would you advise somebody who suffer from that to do? Like,
I don't think it can.
It can't.
I don't think it can.
And why, from your perspective? I have mine.
Yeah. So our business is. So don't kill me. I'm not a parent yet, but I imagine the relationship is similar in form, right? Certainly
Yes.
not in extent.
Yes.
Where this is an idea that you would have seen from inception to now.
Right.
And the idea of leaving that to somebody else to shape it in a different way or have their own imprint on it is hard to accept, at least initially, right? That's why founders tend to spend a lot of time in their businesses.
Yes.
So if you look at some of the most successful entrepreneurs, you think about a Warren Buffett, it's clear that his passion is his business. And though he has partnered with people over the years, mentored a lot of people, he's in his 90s and he's still sitting at the helm of the business, right? If you think about some more recent founders, like a Jeff Bezos, for example, he's now stepped away to go pursue some other passions. He wants to go to space, right? But it took him a while to step away. Bill Gates is another, and he handed it to somebody else who would have worked with him from very early out, Steve Ballmer, to take over. There is no, Satya Nadella is in place, and he's maybe the first CEO who wasn't from the original kind of cohort, Microsoft cohort. And it's just because of that invisible umbilical cord of sorts that the founder has attached to the business. So it won't go away, but it's certainly something that is a double-edged sword.
Yes.
The founder is, at the end of the day, the brainchild, or rather the business is the brainchild of the founder. They're the fuel that gets the business off the ground. They're the innovation, the differentiator that makes the business successful, right? And that's the good side.
Right.
The flip side is that they may become an anchor to the business. So the key is really managing against that downside, ensuring that you are sufficiently self-aware to realize when you are holding back the business as opposed to pushing it forward, and knowing when to, as painful as it is and difficult as it is, to step back and release a little, to say, okay, I've brought in all these bright young people who I've trained for years or younger than me, and they have fresh ideas. I should really allow them to push it forward and kind of sit back and see how it works, because I don't know everything. I know a lot. I've been successful before, but these people, I trust them. I believe in them. They can be successful in a different way. So that's what I'd say. It's not trying to get away from it or get rid of it. It's really just managing the downside associated with it.
Yes, and a key part of that, I would say, is trust and
Yeah.
how you select the persons on your team to actually lead that. That, would you say, is something that can really help to bridge that gap? Because if the founder can have trust in the people, so just talk a little bit about that, because
Yeah, I can talk about that. So it really involves leading actively, right?
Yes.
And not incidentally. So what that means from my perspective is you need to continuously be focused on preparing the people who are directly below you for an eventuality that you won't be there.
Absolutely.
And if you operate that way, it will mean that you will, one, determine very quickly whether you have the right people or you don't, right? Because you'll be, handing down your leadership and transferring to these people, and you realize it's being deflected or it's just not taken, right? And you're like, all right, this is not the right person. But it will also, as you said, allow you to build up trust for the people who you are compatible with, right? Or the trust with them, right? So you're gelling with them, so you're like, all right. And as time goes by, it will become a real thing. So you're like, yeah, I've actively poured into this person. They know the business, as good as I do. They have a different personality and different ideas, but I trust them to bring those to the fore and execute them. It creates a partnership of sorts, as opposed to just seeing people as tools, right? Because if you do that, then you see people as tools, and you have people reporting into you, but it's just for you to direct them and deploy them as resources, and no trust ever gets built up because you send the personal reports directly into you to do something and they don't do it exactly how you want it. So now you just like, oh, and you've never showed them, right? You expect them to just learn it.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, I can't trust this person. I need to just stay in this business until I'm 100. Right?
Oh, my goodness.
So that's the flip side to what I mentioned. So he's really leading actively and preparing the next layer continuously. Yeah.
Yes. I love how you said that, because it's not, now it moves from, founders not just seeing the people as tools, but how do I now equip them and really impart so that they can be the person that helps to run it, so I don't have to live, I don't have to now work in the business, but getting more insight to work on the business, and of course stepping back a little bit too. But that a great element of that is really not seeing people as tools and equipping and empowering them.
Absolutely.
Surrounding yourself with the right people. When you talk about tools and equipping people, you're going to be equipping entrepreneurs, business leaders at the Edge Leadership Summit that's coming up October 2 at the AC Marriott Hotel, which is where we're at right now, our partners. And I'm so excited about this because there is so much. We're going to be joined by Vusi Tembekwayo.
Yes.
He is quite a phenomenal person in the space, and he's going to be here live in Jamaica. I'm looking forward to that. And to having the team.
I'm really honored to have been invited to speak.
Thank you.
It's very exciting. I mean, I think just looking at the the lineup thus far, it's going to be an excellent mosaic of information that attendees can look forward to. And hopefully, coming out of this, people will feel empowered to just bring whatever it is they're doing to the next level. So.
And we would love to have you just to continuing that mentorship journey for business leaders. We really value your insights. I mean, we have to just bottle this. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to do this interview with you. I've learned so much. And just to be in proximity with you.
I'm happy to have been here. I mean, I'll tell you, I'm a byproduct of those who have poured into me. So I really do think that how you described it, mentorship, is the true hallmark of evolution. So each of us just need to help each other to grow. Right?
Thank you so much.
Thank you as well.
That was Ramon Small-Ferguson, CEO of Barita Investments. He is absolutely the very finest in the investment world in the Caribbean, and I can say maybe in the world. I can say that.
You're too kind.
Absolutely.
Erica.
Thank you so much. This has been another edition of the Leaders Live podcast. Until next time, we'll see you soon. Thank you for listening to the Leaders Live podcast with me, your host, Erica McKenzie. And remember, live to lead fearlessly.